Slurpy dirt, my G's. Hope you're all doing well. And today I've got a little bit of a jungly kind of sine wavy bass, which was on the latest Vital preset pack Renaissance, and it's one that I didn't mention in the little demo, but I thought it's quite nice and different, a bit different to the normal Neuro stuff. So I thought have a little run over it today and do a little kind of mini tutorial on it. And it's just completely disappeared now. So yeah, the Fromage Classique, I've called it, and it sounds a bit like this. So yeah, it's got a nice sort of nice jungly kind of flavour on it. And the thing that makes it cool is the harmonics in the high end. So sorry, just turning my MIDI keyboard on again here. So we got sort of I would say we got three parts to the sound. We've got like the low, it's kind of like a sine wave, but yeah, the low like subby part. Then we've got the higher harmonics, which are two sort of detuned wavetables. And then we've got a little bit of noise peppered in on top. All right. So yeah, let's go and break it down because we got like quite a lot of little movements and things happening, and we've got quite a lot of macros as well. So I think the best way we can break it down would be to start off just sort of one at a time. And yeah, so we've got this squared off sine wave, and I've actually put some movement in it already with the unison. So obviously it's -24, so it's quite a low, you know, it's in that sort of sub range. So technically you don't really want to stereo that area, you know, technically. But I'm doing sound design, so there's no rules. And by stereoing this, the way it works with everything else, created a much more interesting result. So the only thing you got to do, obviously, is adjust for that afterwards. So do some like mid-side EQing afterwards. By the way, yeah, Arsenal top boy. Yeah. So you got to do a bit of mid-side EQing afterwards, or you could like replace it with another like normal sine wave underneath. But yeah, in this case, you know, I've just put a little mid-side EQ on the channel just to take out a bit of stereo in the sub. But yeah, that's what we start off with. So the unison up at 3, and then plus 17 here on the the amount of unison. Well, there's 3 voices, and how wide they are spread from each other is 17% here, you know. Obviously, higher up would be a faster kind of wobble. But this is like the first wobble that kind of happens already, but the main wobble that really is going on is going to come from the next 2 oscillators, which are detuning from each other. And these are, the unison is left at 1, and we've got a kind of triangle wave, and then a sine wave. And they're both up at +3, so it's almost like we're doing a little kind of power chord. Or is it a power chord? I don't know. What is it when it's 0 and 3? I don't know. I don't do theory. Anyway, we detune them from each other. So one is up at +26, and one is down at -23. And I've put macros on these. I've put the second one here on one macro down here, and I've put this the fine tuning here of this macro over here, so we can also get a little kind of feeling change by shifting some of the amount of detuning, you know. But anyway, they sound a bit rough still because I need to put some filters on. Okay, so this second oscillator here has some sort of higher harmonics in because it's a triangle wave, so it's got like a little bit of these higher frequencies in. But I didn't actually want to sort of keep them in for this bass. I want the high end just to be from the noise, so that's why I've low passed it here. Okay, but obviously without that, you know, you need it in there. It's that really nice detuning between the triangle and the sine that we want, you know. So that's very important. And then let's add in our sample next, which is the direction, which I did a little free. I don't know if I put it on my website or not, or if it's just on my Patreon. It might even be a free thing on Patreon, but it's like a little noise folder I made of like sounds that are like kind of like white noise, but a bit different. So a bit more interesting and organic. But anyway, this is what it kind of sounds like. Yeah, so what I've done for the noise is I've panned it on an LFO. So LFO4 here is a very, very fast kind of LFO tracked to the panning. The speed of it is actually controllable via this flutter effect, okay? Which basically, it just modulates the smooth. So with the smooth all the way up to the right, the effect is basically off. And when I turn the smooth down by activating the macro of the flutter, we'll start to give that fluttery kind of effect on top, which is happening just from the panning, really quick left and right panning on the noise. So it's a nice way to get a little bit of a flutter on your noise if it's too kind of static without it. But anyway, yeah, the noise has been also taking the low end out. And just before we move on to the effects, there's one thing I sort of failed to mention, which is there is a tiny bit of FM from oscillator 1 onto oscillator 3 here. It's a really, really small amount. But in this kind of bass, those little details make quite a big difference, and it just sort of thickens it up a bit. You know, when I went up too high, you can really hear, you know, it changes, it kind of loses its sort of main tone quite a lot. But just having it a little bit on, it's basically just going to like give a little bit of thickness there. Okay, so yeah, we got the ring and the smooth kind of controlling mostly the sort of detuning speed, so changing the feeling. The flutter to give the noise a bit of movement. That's like the main three macros there. And I've got one more here, which is a rough macro, which is going to be more applicable in our effects section, especially here with the compressor. So I'm using the compressor again in this OTT saturation kind of way, where I just whack up the attack, take down the release, and then just I can mix it in a little bit. And it's going to be like, it's chaotic if you have the mix up too high, but if you just use it a little bit, and that's why I've tracked it here to my macro, so I can kind of get a fine control. Okay, there I can kind of push the sound a bit more, and make it a bit rougher if I want. But I like it quite smooth, this one, because it's more of a jungly, cheesy sine wave ting. So I'm just going to leave that down for now. And then, yeah, what we've got next, we've got a tiny bit of delay. I'll often do this on my presets now, is just so you've got a tiny tail when the sound stops. It doesn't stop like completely abruptly. Obviously, you could do that with the release, but with the ping pong delay, you get a bit of a natural stereo tail, which is quite like professional sounding, in my opinion, to these kind of sounds. Yeah, then what I've done is I've shaped the sound a bit with an EQ, because basically these kind of higher up harmonics that we've got here, they ring quite loud in the frequency spectrum. If you have a look on span, you know, this main guy up here, sort of 200 hertz or something, is like really, really high up, like much higher than the sub. So I've just sort of EQ'd a spot of that out here. That is where the main character is coming from. So I'm not like trying to take it all out, because that's, you know, it's supposed to be there, but it's just was just a bit too loud. So I just kind of EQ'd it out here, you know. But yeah, we're doing like stuff in stages always, because you could say like, oh, why don't you just sort of turn the level down first? But it was a decision that I felt had to be made, you know, after it's like run through the compressor and after it's like gone through the filtering and stuff. So it's like just kind of making adjustments as you go along, you know. And it's a shame with Vital that you can't use more than what the effects they've given you, you know. That's why I like Phase Plant as well, because you can like stack distortions on top of each other. But yeah, we're limited to what we've got here, but that's absolutely fine, because I still love Vital because it's really quick and easy to get sick sounds. So next then, distortion, the sine fold mode. Again, this is on the sort of rough macro, and I really don't even really drive it much. But if you kind of switch it on, even if it's sort of at 0, you'll probably notice it being sort of pushing the sound already a little bit. So yeah, I'll often put on distortion, even if I don't want to drive it all. It's not always about driving it all the way up to the high heavens. It really depends on the sound. But this is a sound that's like kind of dominated by low end sine waves, and those are the quickest things to like sound terrible when you distort them too much. So that's why I've just gone for a little bit, sort of to just glue it all together a bit. And I don't know if I've got a couple more effects. Yeah, I've got a little bit of flanging just to kind of make it a bit more random almost, you know. And then I think a little bit of chorus as well. Also just like spread the kind of result again. Like I'm going really, really low with the mix here on both. And I believe that is pretty much all the effects that I used. Yeah. My finishes on that chorus. We got a really slow LFO up and down just to give like a little bit of extra kind of randomness or natural flavor to the sound. And this is basically, yeah, it's on our sort of little FM here that we had earlier. So that's sort of just goes up and down very, very slightly. Again, the filter one cut off as well. Just opens and closes a really small amount. And then the actual level of the noise as well opens and closes a tiny bit. But it's a really slow up and down triangle. And it's not a full-on triangle, so it's even more subtle because I've just sort of done it in the middle and done a like kind of a, yeah, like halfway kind of triangle, you know? So it's not something that you pick up on first listen. It's like a subtle detail I've put in so that if you were holding the note for longer, it would just be slightly different, you know, wouldn't be sounding too static. So it's all about the little details, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to showcase this one because it has a funny name, La Fromage Classique. And no, also it's one of those jungly kind of sine wave sounds that I've made a lot of in the past, but I think it's my favorite one so far. And I think that's just because of the sort of pitching that I've chosen, you know, and the combination of wavetables. So, you know, it's not all just sine wave. It's a squared off sine wave that's stereoed in the low end. Then it's a triangle with the high end taken out on the filter. And then it's a sine wave, which is detuning with the triangle, but it still creates that nice wobble. And these guys are up at +3, so 2 octaves higher and then 3 semitones up higher. But that creates that nice sort of high-pitched, subby, jungly sine bass thing, you know? So yeah, that's just one I wanted to demonstrate today. I might do another, I might look at 1 or 2 more of the Vital Renaissance Pack presets. And yeah, big thank you to all of you guys who already grabbed it on the release day. Yeah, I see the emails come up and see your names as well. So yeah, thanks to all of you. Really appreciate that. And yeah, have a wicked rest of your day, my G's. Peace out. Much love.